Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Denon. I am a member of the Communo team, and I'm out here today in rainy Calgary, Alberta. I will be your moderator for today's webinar. So, today we have Communo member webinar series, and we have Trevor Longano. He's a Communo member, and he's the founder of ProudTamers.com, an agency for growth content marketing. With over 20 years of experience and millions in revenue, Trevor is here today to share some tips with you that helped him build up companies through branding and positioning. We are so excited to have you here today, Trevor. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to head off here and give the floor to you so you can start your presentation. But before I do that, I just want to encourage everyone to use the chat feature and engage as much as you can. We will have a big Q&A at the end, which we're super excited for. So ask all the questions you have, and Trevor will do his best to answer them. Okay, I'm going to sign off now and give the floor to you.
Excellent. All right, thank you. I usually do this as a 4 to 6 hour interactive workshop. I've done this, I think, on 3 different continents now. I've done this a bunch of times. This is going to be condensed down into a 35-minute one-to-many presentation. I will give you as much information as I can, as fast as I can. I can talk pretty fast, so hold on to your seats, because here we go. Let's start with, your branding sucks if you don't do these 5 things. Well, what do I mean by brand, right? What is brand? Brand can be your logo. It can be your actual shopping experience. It can be your website. Those are all, they're part of your brand, but they're not the entirety of it. Somewhat well-known, smartish guy, Jeff Bezos, likes to say that brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. I think that's an illuminating fact, because what people say about Jeff Bezos has changed a lot over the last couple of years. Founder of Amazon, smart guy, divorcee, fond of weird things in the bedroom, and now richest guy in the world. There's a lot of changes just about him when he's not in the room. Now, Amazon is a global company, and Jeff Bezos is a global name. So everybody knows about him, and he can't really pick and choose who's talking about him. But you can. You're not, I'm going to assume if you're on this call, steering a global company. You're not someone who's so well known that everybody just thinks, oh yeah, I know those guys. So you get to choose your audience. That's a big part of when you think about branding. What are people who you choose saying about you when you're not in the room? I think brand answers the question to these people. It helps them understand why you're in business, and it helps you understand why you're in business. And if you're fortunate enough to have a company of more than just you or you and a co-founder, it helps your whole company understand why you're in business. That is crucial. Without all this information, you can't understand how to be different than everybody else in the space. And that's brand positioning, which is really what we're going to talk about here. So there are 5 key brand exercises I want us to walk through today. And they are all perfectly sensible. I'm sure you can tell from the names exactly what they are. I'm just kidding. They don't make sense to anybody. Pirate and Ninja, solve one problem, your 2025 Twitter bio, the 3 commandments, and choose your tribe. Each of these addresses a different part of brand positioning. And normally I mention this as a workshop. I do this kind of one-on-one, and we go through it slowly together. In my case, I'm giving you all homework. I know just the thing you wanted on a lovely Wednesday afternoon is to have something to do for the rest of your day. But if you do complete these homework assignments after I go through them, you will have a deeper understanding of your brand and what makes you unique than you did before. I am pretty sure. All right. It's important to note, when I talk about brand, when I talk about what your brand is, I'm not speaking necessarily about the visual parts of it. I do think the visual aspect of branding and the design of it is very important. I think it's out of scope for what I can do here, and a whole lot of that is opinion-based and not something I think you can make a checklist and go through it and say, this is going to help you understand your visual brand better. So we're going to talk about branding and positioning, and your brand does suck if you don't do these things. So it's important also to note, when you talk about brand, you, I'm assuming, are a relatively senior person in your organization. And that matters because your organization is you, right? If you're a solopreneur or a small agency or even a big agency and the founder or a senior manager there, you're determining the culture of the organization you're in. That culture is also going to drive that brand. So when you think about your brand and your brand positioning and what you want your brand to be, it can't be too disjunct from you. You look at me in my pink shirt and my ridiculous mustache. I can't really do a brand that is, let me be a quiet Brooke brother's banker who speaks in a very reserved tone that is entirely risk averse. That's not going to work for me. If I tried to build a company on that, I simply would not succeed because I couldn't drive that positioning. So when you think about this, I'll give you an example from a startup I've worked with. Here are two different co-founders, right? One of them is a designer, an artist. He's super fond of look and feel and packaging, and his product looks tremendous. And the other one is an engineer, technical background, made a high-performance product, identical product, really, in terms of the use case. These are both Bluetooth beacons. But one of these guys is super artsy, and one of them is super technical. I think just looking at them, you can already see which company went which way. And that goes all the way down to the product. I think you can tell which company was the artsy company and which company was the tech company. Now, I was doing marketing for the tech company here, the one with the black beacon on the right. And I deliberately didn't try to build them to be like the other guys who were successful, and UX was incredible, and their whole product philosophy was around the experience, went performance-based, went value-based, went feature-based, and succeeded hugely by focusing on what they could drive as a winning value for the company. So we'll start with Pirate or Ninja. What do I mean by that? All right. I'm a big nerd. If you ever watch movies, the Marvel movies are pretty popular now, or Lord of the Rings, there's something of a dichotomy, a big difference between different personality types. Pirates and ninjas are two different approaches to, let's say, a combative person, right? Pirates are loud and swagger and arrogant and brash, and ninjas are quiet and disciplined and skillful and refined. And likewise, elves and dwarves. Elves are kind of highfalutin and artsy, and dwarves are earthy and craftsmanship type. And so you can build a matrix of pirate, ninja, elf, and dwarf. And no one can really be both complete ninja and complete pirate. It's impossible. It's a linear gradation. And so, like, I know me personally, I tend to be like an elfy pirate. I'm kind of the artsy type, and I'm definitely the brash and outgoing sort. So if you think of that XY axis, you want to find what makes you unique and makes you stand out on a similar, in terms of pirate or ninja, right? Is your brand, are you brash? Are you skillful? Are you artsy? Are you crafty? And then you think about, okay, well, what are the matrix you want to build, right? This is a pretty common comparative matrix here. If you think of software, here's an example, right? B2B, B2C cloud install. Another good example that may be a little more tangible, I think of who makes burgers, right? Think of, okay, burgers and how do we want to make differentiation here? There's self-serve versus full staff. There's really expensive versus cheap. And if you know that I want to make expensive, fancy restaurant experiences where we serve burgers, then you know who you're competing with. And then you know I've got to have something that makes me distinct to these people. Now, you can make an XY matrix for anything, right? I could make an XY matrix for logo color and say red versus blue. You need to make sure that this pirate or ninja gradation that you are doing is, how do you make these axes original? How do you determine superiority in these spaces? And how do you make sure that the differentiation you're making is useful? So your homework assignment is twofold for this. One is go ahead and do pirate, ninja, and elf and dwarf for your brand. Think about what makes those different personality traits and do it for you, but then also do one with your own axes. If you haven't explicitly done this, you may find it's illuminating to put yourself on the chart and then to put other people who are in the space with you. And that will help you start to figure out where you are in the landscape. Now, anybody running an agency, every other agency is all kind of in the same space, but you're not. I don't compete with PPC agencies. That's not my job. So I wouldn't really put them on an axis with me. If I found somebody else who was doing growth marketing or doing content marketing, there might be some competition. And then what's my XY axis to make me unique to them? That's my differentiation. So build that out. Think about what your axis should be. Make sure you pay attention to what the gradations are. Put yourself on the map and make sure you understand. That's the first step to knowing your position. Solve one problem is the next step. Right? I only do three things, really, in my entire marketing practice. I help companies figure out their positioning. I help them figure out who they sell to and figure out where to find them. That's all one problem of how do we make money reliably from an audience. Solve one problem. Now it's easy to say what you do, right? What is the problem you're solving? Simon Sinek writes about golden circle and what drives companies on to greatness. And you start with the what, right? What do? I do marketing. What do you do? I don't know, man. We can't talk. It's two-way communication, one-way communication. But that what is a means to an end. It is not brand positioning, right? There are thousands of different places you can go and consume video. There's only one twitch.tv where you go watch video games. There are thousands of Etsy crafters out there. To my knowledge, there's only one that makes quilted masks for quarantine. Like, there's the what of I make masks, but what are you doing that's different? Now, how do you do it? In my case, for crowd tamers, I have my approach to growth content marketing, the 3-stage process, and that's the mechanism, the means to an end of helping companies earn revenue and make successful launches for their business. But the why is the real hard part. And the why, if you nail that, will let you stand out from the competition because you will have a different why. Apple's why is they want to empower creatives to change the world. Nike's why is they want to make you feel comfortable in your body. Okay, that's a why that isn't. Stuart Butterfield, founder of Slack, wrote a famous blog post called "We Don't Sell Saddles Here." And his point is Slack does not sell instant messaging. Slack sells freedom from burdensome communication. Slack sells collaboration. Slack sells team membership and belonging. That's the why. For the longest time, their tagline was "kill your email." They've since kind of stepped away from that. But the idea is that why isn't what you do. That why is how you make decisions around what you do. So for crowd tamers, my why is that I've seen so many businesses that should have succeeded failed simply because they didn't know what they were doing. And I want people to get the mental tools to succeed at launching a business. And my blog's about that. These webinars are about that. I want to equip people to make good choices because I've done this wrong a lot. I've done this right a lot. And if I can help other businesses succeed, I'm helping make the world a net better place because capitalism does drive positive change. All right, 2025 Twitter bio. Right now, you maybe know what you do, but if you could choose in the future what you're going to do, what would that be? Now, some companies have mission statements. I hate them. Mission statements are, to effectuate the betterment of society, we are creating a new and more effective payment gateway for mankind. It's garbage. Don't do that. But in place of a mission statement, you want a guiding statement that helps decision-making happening for you, happen for other team members, and even help you say no to business. Because you don't want to just have everybody as your audience. You want to choose that audience, that branded people who talk about you when you're not in the room. And you want to make sure that the people you're choosing are self-selecting. I don't sell to people who make shoes, right? I can't really help them out necessarily. I don't want somebody in that space to come to me and say, "Can you help me?" I'll be like, "No, not really." So your 2025 Twitter bio talks about the arc you want your company to be in and how you differentiate in a very similar space, right? A good example of this is Mustang versus Fiat. They both sell cars, right? Fundamentally, it's four wheels and doors and an enclosure and you go places. But Fiat sells efficient, cute, quirky transportation. Mustang sells freedom and power, right? And their Twitter bios are super different as a result. If you think about what you are out there and how your Twitter bio might be constructed, think about in 2025, you've been remarkably successful. Your company is 10 times bigger than it is now. How would you explain in 2025 what you do, for whom do you do it, and how is it different? Your homework for this one is to actually write this out, right? Follow this little format. Company name does boom for people and differentiation. And make it fit into 140 characters. This is forcing you to distill down all the maybes and possiblies and somethings out there into a concrete goal. So now we've talked about how you are in the XY matrix that you've constructed and how you are in Pirate Ninja. We've talked about how you solve the why, and you should write down your why. We've talked about what you want to be in the future. Then there's the 3 commandments. I think 10 commandments is too many for most of us. 3 commandments, I think, equips you with a very lean set of decision-making tools. Now, the first 3 of these here are really about how you're explaining yourself to other people, right? Pirate and Ninja solve one problem in Twitter bio. Are you differentiating yourself publicly? But if you want your business and your organization to succeed in the long term, you need to figure out how to equip other people to make decisions. And even just to equip you, when you write something down, when you force yourself to think through a problem and write an answer to it, it adds clarity, and it also means you can go back to this and refer it later. So these 3 commandments are the 3 guiding beacons behind decision-making for you. Traditionally, commandments in Judeo-Abrahamic faiths are thou shalt not. I don't like that. I think that's a little negative. Think about what you shall do. And when I talk about these commandments, I'm talking about you shall always make always make a choice based on data instead of feeling. Okay, there's a guiding principle for your company. This is internal for you to know. It's not necessarily something you would publish anywhere, but this is a big part of your brand positioning, because if you are an artsy, UX-centric company, you should always consider the user in everything you do. If you are a technology-centric company, you shall always find the most elegant technological solution to a problem. Never settle for the easiest answer, right? These sort of driving principles give you ammo and equip you to make decisions that align around what you've agreed you want your company to be. And then you want to think about who these decisions apply to, both internally and externally. So internally, who is equipped to make decisions in your company? I heartily encourage you to distribute authority to make decisions as far out as you can. Anybody who's in the founder's dilemma, anybody who's early stage, 2-5-person company, you have to do everything yourself as much as you can, and it can be hard to let go of some of that stuff if you bring on help. But the more you let go, the more you can grow. And if you've got written guidance on company goal, company 2020 bio, 2025 bio, on what your aligning principles are, and you can tell your team, look, take risks, but be smart about them. Don't take risks that you can't revert. If you tell your team that's a thou shalt, right? Thou shalt take risks, but make sure you can walk them back. And then any decision you make, if you can walk it back, cool, no worries. Your team is now equipped to make that decision, and if they screw it up, walk it back. But also, who do these apply to on the external side, right? Your guiding principles, the customer is always right, is a big one, right? Who's a customer? Somebody who comes in loudly proclaiming, I've frequented this store for years, and I need you to do the special deal for me. If your cashier is told the customer is always right and this person's just trying to negotiate for a good deal, okay, and then maybe that's not the person who's ever been your customer before. Somebody comes in and they are on the Pareto's principle, the 20% of your audience, your client base, who's 80% of your work. Is that really your client? Can you maybe say that customer's not always right? I should find a way to get that customer out of my business and focus on people who I can deliver value to. So aligning your guiding principles around internal decision-making and making sure it helps you choose who you're serving is a big part of that branding as well, right? You've got that audience. Which brings us to choose your tribe. Seth Godin writes, he's another famously big marketing thinker. He writes about the necessity to build a tribe. And a bunch of other folks have written and made tons of content around the passion economy, right? For your average individual, All it really takes is 1,000 people who really appreciate what they do. And you can earn a pretty good living on $100 a year off those 1,000 people. 100K a year. Most of us can squeak by on that. A business needs more than that. A business has more responsibility. It has more deliverability. But you still got to think about what is your tribe. And particularly in the beginning, choose your first 10. Seth Godin talks about that. First 10 and then grow. Who are your first 10? Now, all of us here on this call, I'm going to assume, probably already have had your first 10. You probably got a business that's been successful to some extent. Some of those have been more successful than others. I've been running crowd tamers for 14 years now. I'll be honest, some of my first clients were just money, right? Somebody who I needed to earn my bills, and I took it. And I learned sometimes, yes, you have to take that client because you need the money. But ideally, you get to the stage where you don't take that client because you want to be able to say, my tribe is people who I know I can serve effectively, who I enjoy working with, and who I can grow beyond their current problems easily. In my case, my tribe tends to be startups, seed round, A round, trying to figure out positioning and scale a revenue operation up to making them a couple $1 million. Like, I can do that really well. I understand all of the pieces to make that work. And my tribe is people who are going through all that. Your tribe is going to be somebody different. But when you choose your tribe, do realize that you can tweak this after the fact. You may right now say, look, I've had 40 clients. I only really like working with 5 of them. Or I have 600 paying users to my service. And 80 of them I'd say are good and the rest are not. You can always refine your focus and choose your tribe. If you're on this call, I'm guessing it's because you want to think about, how do I get better at positioning? So you're already in flight. At this moment, you have a brand. I guarantee you, if you've never put thought into your brand, you have one. Now, if you're bringing intent into this, if you're steering this, if you're saying, I want to make something better, part of that will probably be choosing a tribe right now, calling this tribe and figuring out who I really want to serve. That's going to mean saying no to some people. That'll feel scary. The first time I said no to a existing client, I'm like, hey, you know what? I think you'll find somebody else who can better suit you. Let me refer you over to a friend I know who does this. It's scary. But by freeing you up to do what you care more about, it lets you then distill your focus, do a better job, have happier people. And those people, that tribe that you build, when you make people really, really happy because you're focused on delivering exactly what they need at the moment they need it, that is its own marketing engine for you. When you've nailed your branding and your positioning and you stand out as the exemplar of exactly the thing you do, business gets much easier. Whether it's selling a subscription service or selling a product or being an agency, any of these things, when you are unique and distinct in your purpose and your tribe of people likes you, they'll recommend you. Every client I've got right now, if I say, hey, can I recommend you to a new lead? They're like, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to talk to them. You do a great job. I don't have to worry about people being unhappy with me because I know I'm delivering exactly the value they need. Choose that tribe because that's how you make a difference, right? Your business succeeds when you nail all these different steps, right? Pirate or ninja, solve one problem, Twitter bio, 3 commandments, choose your tribe. Write down what your tribe is. That's the homework here. It's your user persona. You want to think about it that way. Who do you uniquely provide that value for? And if you can't find that user persona, if you don't know, if you've already got users, call them up, talk to them, find a commonality between all of them. And then think about who was my good audience versus my bad audience. How do I winnow this down to a tribe where I can say on that pirate ninja axis, my tribe fits here and I'm there with them. Now we've aligned together, right? I'm solving one problem for these people. I'm empowering my team to make decisions to do this right for these people. When all this aligns together, that's when you are able to help make a change for you and make a change for anybody who you're selling to. You only get, to the best of my knowledge, one shot at life. Why spend it servicing people in a way that's ineffective, selling product to people who don't like it, making things that aren't good? That's all a waste. Choose your tribe, align your whole product around them, and then you'll be able to take that difference. Choose those first 10. Winnow down from 500 to 10 if you must, or if you've got 5 right now, find 5 more. Get those first 10 who need what you do, and that will equip you to see how big an audience you need from there. That's really what I have to say. That's the talk I have to give. I'd love to get some Q&A in here and see what questions you may have. I see there's already a couple of questions dropped in here. I'll start with Rowan. Do I have suggestions for labeling your X and Y axes? So because you want unique, you want something that is superior, and you want something that is valuable, you have to think about what would be unique and valuable for your particular use case. An example, when I do this as a workshop, I talk people through a banjo making company because I play banjo, and why not? And so as a banjo making company, like, what are your X, Y axes? They'd be different than if you make, pizza, right? Your X, Y axis, your value, right? Cost is part of it. Quality is part of it. But you also might want to add things like tonality or authenticity, or you find what is making you unique and align around there. As far as revisiting these exercises, that's the next question from Mona here. When I generally tackle these whenever I find there's friction in user acquisition. Part of what Crowd Tamers does is I build a bunch of content funnels around acquiring a particular user, leading them through a user journey and converting them into a sale. Some of these pieces, some of these 5 stages here are kind of universal, right? Solve one problem isn't as universal necessarily. Pirate Ninja is pretty universal. Twitter bio, 3 commandments, pretty universal. Your company does that. Solve one problem and choose your tribe. You tweak this a bit based off of who you're serving. To give an example from my past, so I worked for a hardware company. The guys who make the beacons that I showed you, right, the fancy artsy beacons and the hardware, little black plastic ones. They discovered there were 3 different audiences who really wanted what they had to sell: pharmaceutical companies, trans-shipping warehousing companies, and people who needed security and access control in a physical space. And so you have slightly different value prop for each of those tribes, right? And for each of them, your marketing is a little bit different. So you build an acquisition funnel for each of them. And as you nailed one down, it's going to be pretty static for a while. Mind you, the market does shift. And so you will need to shift as the market does. If a competitor comes in or a new technology comes in, you might discover that what was reliably a 4% conversion funnel is now down to 2%. Something's gone wrong. Go back and revisit this and see, is this still my tribe? Am I solving their one problem successfully? You can understand that conversion rate, and then if it shifts, revisit it. How do you, from Bryn here, how do you revisit a brand's purpose without becoming rigid or boring? I think a good purpose should not be about rigidity. It is, so there's rules and there are processes, right? A rule is do this because I say so. A process is a set of steps you arrive to reach a conclusion. A good purpose to your company is that process. It is, we are helping people reach an answer. We are helping, we don't sell instant messaging, we sell community. And Slack's alignment around not being a messaging company, they're kind of a fun, quirky, build your community company. Your ability to do that, you don't have to have a rigidity there, really. It is, this is the set of steps you have to follow to be Slack. It is rather, this is the ability and experience you want to unlock in people when they use Slack. So for an agency or for a B2C company, you want to think more about in that Twitter bio, in that what do you enable people to do? You want to think about what is the process we are unlocking? What is the experience we are providing? And that's not as rigid. Those are the three questions we currently have. There are still a bunch of folks on the call. Would anybody else like to drop something in, or should we wrap up a little bit early?
Yeah, definitely. Still post all your questions that you have in here. I was just kind of curious of what advice you would give somebody who's kind of starting out. You talked about your first 10 clients and how you need them to make some money, but now you're kind of talking about tribe as well. So as someone starting out, is it more important to focus on your tribe and appeal to those people for the long run, or get the clients for just getting some quick revenue?
I went about this by getting clients first and then finding a tribe. I also didn't know as much about what I was doing when I started. I think if I had this to do over again, I would start with a tribe, because if you build a tribe of 1,000 people, you will get clients, and it will be easier. You can reliably, like with social networking, with LinkedIn groups and Facebook groups and Slack channels and email outreach and retargeting and 100 different tools, you can get 10 clients on LinkedIn in probably 60 days if you're disciplined about this, if you know what you want to do, if you know the value you provide, and you just like do outreach, right? Find somebody who you think you can help and say, I think I can help you. Can we talk? Here's what I've already done, right? Put some work in, do some upfront effort. I used to acquire clients by doing an audit of their website and sending them the audit and saying, hey, like, here's a bunch of things you could do to be better at marketing. If you want to talk about it, cool. And I get like maybe 7% of those emails would end up closing a deal.
Awesome.
I'd put half an hour work in for every potential lead, but that's worth it. And now I've got enough of an audience, even my little tribe, where I don't need to look for work. Work comes my way. Yeah, I would. I have the luxury now of being able to say, choose your tribe first. If you're skint, if you're broke, if you need something now, like, go do money. But if you've got 4 months, go build your tribe.
I think that's great advice. And I think that there's a lot of entrepreneurs on this call that can really learn something from that. Yeah. We have another question in here from Sanjay. Yes. He wants to know, how can one differentiate a new entrant brand from industry giants?
So this comes back to solve one problem. And I actually, literally right before this call, I had a previous call that ended at 12:50 before I hopped on this at 1. And I was telling a startup, look, you have great technology, that's awesome, but what do you solve? And they went, well, we could do a bunch of things. And I'm like, SAP can do a bunch of things, right? They have $5 billion. You don't. What's your one thing? And that's the differentiator, is when you do one thing really well and better than anyone else out there, that's how you differentiate, right? I'm not competing with, I don't know, YP&B. I ran a PR firm for a while. YP&B is like the biggest PR firm in the US. And my PR firm was overnight PR. My specialty was, we wrote SEC compliant filings for PR in an hour, anytime, day or night. And I charge $800 to write a press release, because if you woke me up at 2 a.m, you'd better pay me for it. But that was a tiny niche. And I was reliably doing, $3-4K a month off of that. And when I was a student, that covered all my bills. I was fine. That tiny niche, you find that little area and you dominate it, and there you go. The industry giants can't compete because they're pushing on 500 different value props. If you push on one, it's a tiny fraction of the effort, you'll go much further. Rowan asks how I use Communo. Poorly, honestly. I don't make great use of it, and that's my fault. That's not Communo's. I have a podcast series I'm meaning to start with a fellow Communo member, where we interview Communo members about these exact questions on branding and positioning. And I think if I get around to it, that would actually start to make good use of the community. The necessity to be proactive in Communo is important. I have funneled some work into Communo because I will get just work I can't handle. And I'll be like, well, I don't want to do this, but here's someone I can refer you to. And that's nice because I still have the client thinks I'm a resource and an expert. And the cost of Communo when you're a solopreneur is tiny. I have not built much network with Communo. I think I've got one deal that I might close from Communo finally a year in. If I were more proactive and actually did my podcast series, I feel like I would get more utility out of it. It is a huge resource of people who all care about agencies and entrepreneurship and running businesses, and like this should be easy hunting grounds for me. Just I haven't gotten around to it. From Communo community, did I ever have to defend the quality of my work? No. I think when you tell somebody I need to beat the filing deadline or else I'll be in a violation of SEC. So can you write this now? Like, I knew how to write stuff that was compliant, and I am a pretty good writer. I remember once, I think I was watching Lord of the Rings. This is back in the day when it was in theater. I had an old, I'm dating myself here. I had a Sidekick T-Mobile flip-top phone with a keyboard built in. This is back before iPhones. And in the middle of the movie, my phone went off and somebody needed me to write a press release. And so I did it in the theater on my phone, watching Lord of the Rings, and submitted it and made $800 like that. You know, that works, right? It's okay. And Brenda says goodbye. Goodbye, Brenda. Nice talking to you. So that was my workshop, squeezed into 35 minutes. You all have homework. I do encourage you. I can't sit over your shoulders and watch you. Do this. It all sounds kind of silly, and it's coming from a guy with a mustache like this. But if you do this, you will learn stuff about yourself and about your business. I probably revisit this once a year or so myself just to make sure, am I aligning myself around what I want to do? Because I teach this workshop more than once a year, I tend to think about it every time I do the workshop. And forcing myself through that process does mean every time I do this, I think a little more about my tribe and focusing down more on it. Pick your tribe, make a difference, be better. That's all I got, man.
That's good advice. Well, thank you so much, Trevor, for joining us today. I think that those were really great insights, and I think the homework is actually going to be very useful for everyone on the call. Who would have known we'd be excited about homework? But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us on our Communo webinar series. To anybody on the call who's not a Communo member, you can go ahead and sign up. It is free to sign up for our free account, so go ahead and do that. We do have just a little pop-up for you to take you there. Thank you everyone for coming, and I want everyone to stay safe and healthy. Thank you, Trevor.
Thanks very much. If you have any questions, reach out to me, tlongino@crowdtamers.com, or I'm on Twitter @TrevorLongino. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Great.
We need outro music too.